I'm Sylvia Reed, 30 years old, and I never thought my family would turn a celebration into a public humiliation. Picture this: a glittering hotel ballroom in Philadelphia packed with tailored suits and forced smiles for my dad's 30th anniversary of his hotel chain. Crystal chandeliers gleamed, champagne flowed, and there I was trying to blend in despite the whispers. My family owns a string of luxury hotels, and I've always been the odd one out chasing a career they can't stand. That night, I thought I'd just grit my teeth through another awkward evening. I was wrong. The room buzzed as my dad took the stage, his voice booming with pride about his legacy. Then his eyes locked on me. "Some people," he said, his tone ice cold, "are an embarrassment to this family." The crowd went silent. My sister smirked, leaning back in her chair like she'd been waiting for this. My stomach dropped. But the worst part? He wasn't done. He pointed straight at me, his words slicing through the air. "You're the biggest disgrace to this family." Gasps rippled through the room. I stood my chair, scraping against the floor. Heart pounding. "Perfect." I shot back, my voice steady despite the heat in my cheeks. "Then erase me from your will too." I turned and walked out, their stunned faces fading behind me. That moment changed everything, a turning point I will never forget. Family or self-respect? If you had to choose, which would you pick? Drop your answer in the comments. Walking out of that hotel ballroom left my heart racing, but the truth is, the sting of being an outsider in my own family wasn't new. My father, Walter Reed, a 60-year-old hotel tycoon, built Reed Hotels into a Philadelphia empire. His name's on every glossy brochure, his handshake seals million-dollar deals. My mother, Frances Reed, 58, runs charity events, always polished, always smiling for the cameras. Then there's my older sister, June Reed, 33, the star hotel manager, Dad's pride, the daughter who followed his script. Me, I was the one who didn't fit. Growing up, our house was more like a showcase than a home. Marble floors, chandeliers, staff buzzing around it screamed wealth, but warmth was harder to find. Dad's world revolved around his hotels, and he expected us all to orbit the same way. June soaked it up, memorizing business plans by high school, her eyes gleaming at boardroom talk. I was different. I'd sneak off with a microphone, recording stories, playing with sound. By 12, I was hooked on telling stories through audio, dreaming of a career in podcasting. My first studio was a blanket fort with a cheap recorder where I'd narrate made-up adventures. It felt like freedom. But freedom wasn't part of Dad's plan. Podcasting, he'd scoff at dinner, his fork pausing midair. "That's not a career, it's a hobby for kids who can't commit." June would roll her eyes, tossing her hair, her smirk saying she agreed. Mom stayed quiet, her gaze fixed on her plate, avoiding the tension. I'd bite my tongue, my face hot, knowing they saw me as a failure. My Aunt Lillian Reed, a 55-year-old art teacher, was the only one who got it. She'd slip me old radio tapes whispering, "Keep creating, Sylvia." Her encouragement was a lifeline, but it couldn't drown out Dad's disapproval. High school was when the rift really grew. June was valedictorian, captain of everything, already shadowing Dad at work. I was the kid with headphones editing audio in the library, dodging questions about my future. When I chose media studies over business in college, Dad's face went stone cold. "You're throwing away your legacy," he said, his voice low, like I'd betrayed him. June didn't hold back either. She'd call my dreams cute in a way that made my skin crawl. Mom tried to smooth things over, saying, "Maybe you can do both." But her words felt hollow. I wasn't going to be a hotel heiress. I wanted to tell stories that mattered. By my mid-20s, I'd started a small podcast, City Voices, sharing Philly's untold stories. It wasn't big, but every download felt like a win. I'd pour hours into interviews, editing late into the night, my boyfriend, Colin, a 32-year-old filmmaker, cheering me on. He'd say, "You're building something real, Sylvia." But at family gatherings, my work was a punchline. Dad would change the subject when I mentioned it. June would snicker about internet nonsense, and Mom would offer a tight smile like she pitied me. The message was clear: I wasn't living up to the read name. Lillian was my refuge. We'd meet at her tiny apartment walls covered in student art and talk about creativity over coffee. "Your dad's wrong," she'd say, her eyes fierce. "You don't need his approval to shine." But it still hurt. Every family dinner felt like a trial, June boasting about hotel expansions, Dad nodding proudly, me shrinking into my chair. I'd leave those nights feeling like a ghost in my own life, my passion dismissed as a childish phase. They didn't see me, not really. And the worst part, I started to wonder if they were right. Rebuilding my life meant facing battles I'd avoided for years. Dad and June had a new mission: drag me into Reed hotels no matter what I wanted. Our family's flagship restaurant, a sleek dining hall in one of their Philadelphia hotels, became the stage for their campaign. Every dinner there felt like an ambush, with polished waiters hovering and tension thick enough to cut. It started subtly. At one dinner, Dad leaned across the table, his voice calm but pointed. "Sylvia, you're wasting your potential," he said, slicing his steak. "Marketing for Reed Hotels would give you stability." I clenched my fork, my podcast's growing audience flashing in my mind. City Voices had just hit 5,000 downloads, a small victory I'd worked nights to earn. "I'm doing fine," I replied, keeping my tone even. June snorted, tossing her napkin down. "Fine. Your little hobby won't pay the bills." Her words stung, but I swallowed my retort, not wanting to escalate. Weeks later, the attacks got bolder. During another dinner, June bragged about landing a new hotel contract, her eyes flicking to me with a smug grin. "Some of us actually contribute to the family," she said. Dad nodded his approval, loud in his silence toward me. I spoke up, mentioning a local artist I'd interviewed for my podcast, hoping they'd listen. Dad cut me off. "That's not real work," he snapped. "You're embarrassing yourself." Mom shifted in her seat, her lips parting, but she said nothing. I felt my chest tighten, my pride bruised but intact. Aunt Lillian was my anchor. After one particularly brutal dinner, I met her at a coffee shop. "They're wrong about you," she said, her voice firm, pushing a sketchbook aside. "Your podcast is art, Sylvia. Don't let them dim that." Her words kept me going, but the pressure was relentless. Colin, my boyfriend, saw it too. One night, as we edited an episode together, he squeezed my hand. "You're killing it," he said. "They just don't get it." His support was everything, but it couldn't shield me from the next blow. The worst came at a family dinner 2 months before the anniversary party. Dad had invited top hotel managers, turning the meal into a showcase for June. She stood detailing plans for a new location, her confidence radiating. Then Dad turned to me, his gaze cold. "Sylvia, it's time to stop playing around," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Join marketing or you're cut off. No trust fund, no support." The table went quiet. June's lips curled, her victory clear. I pushed my chair back, my voice steady. "I don't need your money," I said. "I'm building something real." Mom's eyes widened, but she stayed silent. The managers exchanged glances, awkwardness hanging heavy. I left that night shaken but resolute. My podcast was gaining traction. Local media had even mentioned City Voices in a blog. I wasn't about to trade that for a desk job I'd hate. But Dad's ultimatum echoed in my head, and June's constant comparisons made it worse. Every jab, every sneer built a wall between me and the family. Aunt Lillian texted me after saying, "Stay true to yourself." I clung to that, but the dinners kept coming, each one a reminder that I was the odd one out. The final straw was a week before the party. June cornered me at the restaurant, her voice low. "You're dragging our name down," she hissed. "Why can't you be more like me?" I stared her down, my patience gone. "Because I'm not you," I shot back. Dad overheard, his face hardening, but I didn't care anymore. I was done bending. That defiance carried me into the anniversary party, where everything would finally break. The grand ballroom in our flagship Philadelphia hotel buzzed with over 200 guests, investors, managers, local bigwigs, all toasting Dad's legacy. I wore a simple black dress hoping to slip through unnoticed, but my gut told me this night would be different. Dad took the stage, his presence commanding, his smile polished for the crowd. He spoke of Reed Hotel's rise, his voice swelling with pride. This empire, he said, is built on family, on loyalty. Then his eyes found me sharp and cold. The room seemed to shrink. But some, he continued, his tone turning bitter. Choose to tarnish that legacy. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My heart raced, knowing what was coming. He pointed at me, his voice booming. Sylvia, you're the biggest disgrace to this family. Gasps echoed. June, seated nearby, let out a sharp laugh, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The words hit like a slap, but they weren't new. What made my blood boil was the stage, hundreds of eyes on me, judging, whispering. I felt Colin's hand brush mine under the table, a quiet anchor, but I didn't need calming. I was done. I pushed my chair back, the screech cutting through the silence. Standing, I locked eyes with Dad. Perfect. I said, my voice steady, loud enough for all to hear. Then erase me from your will, too. The room froze. June's smirk vanished, replaced by shock. Mom's glass trembled, wine sloshing. Guests exchanged stunned glances, some leaning forward, others whispering. I didn't wait for a response. My heels clicked on the marble floor as I walked toward the exit, every step heavier than the last. Dad's voice faltered behind me, trying to pivot back to his speech, but the damage was done. June hissed something to Mom, but I didn't catch it. Aunt Lillian, standing near the bar, gave me a small nod, her eyes fierce with pride. Colin stood to follow, but I waved him off. I needed to do this alone. The double doors loomed ahead, and as I pushed them open, the weight of their stairs lifted. I was out. Outside, the cool Philadelphia night hit my face, my breath shaky but free. I'd spent years dodging their disapproval, trying to prove my worth. That moment, standing up to Dad in front of his world, was the end of it. I wasn't just walking away from a party I was done with, their rules, their expectations, their name. The Reed legacy could keep its hotels, its wealth, its pride. I had my own path, and I'd fight for it. The crowd's whispers followed me, but I didn't look back. Aunt Lillian's nod stayed with me, a reminder I wasn't entirely alone. Colin would meet me later, probably worried but proud. Dad and June thought they'd broken me, but they'd see. I wasn't the disgrace they'd misjudged me, and that was their mistake. The night marked a line I'd never cross back. Leaving the Reed Hotel's ballroom behind felt like shedding a weight I'd carried for years. I was done with their rules, done with their judgment. It was time to build something of my own. Within weeks, I poured everything into launching SoundWave Studio, my podcast production company. I rented a small office in Philadelphia, just a desk and a microphone at first, but it was mine. Every late night editing, every pitch I sent was a step toward proving them wrong, not just Dad and June, but everyone who doubted me. Colin was my rock. He'd bring coffee to the studio, helping me brainstorm episode ideas while we laughed over takeout. "You're unstoppable," he'd say, his grin lighting up the room. I hired Bridget Cole, my 25-year-old assistant, whose sharp editing skills and endless energy turned my vision into reality. Together, we expanded City Voices, my podcast, into a series covering Philly's artists, activists, and dreamers. Downloads climbed to $10,000, then $20,000. Each number felt like a quiet victory, proof I didn't need the Reed name to succeed. Then came the big break. Stanley Huang, a 40-year-old tech CEO, reached out after hearing my podcast. His company wanted a branded series to highlight their community work. We met at a sleek downtown cafe, his enthusiasm contagious. "Your voice cuts through," he said, offering a contract worth 6 figures. I signed, my hands shaking with excitement. SoundWave Studio was no longer just a dream, it was real, with clients and a growing reputation. Bridget and I celebrated with cheap wine toasting to new beginnings, but success drew shadows. Marina Choi, a 35-year-old podcast producer, ran a rival studio in Philly. I'd met her at industry events, her polished smile hiding a competitive edge. Soon after the Stanley deal, whispers started online. A blog post claimed I'd stolen clients with shady tactics. Another hinted I'd faked my podcast stats. The comments stung. People I'd never met called me a fraud. I recognized Marina's handiwork. Her studio had pitched to Stanley and lost. Bridget found a pattern. Anonymous accounts tied to Marina's team were spreading the rumors. My inbox filled with skeptical emails from potential clients, and a small sponsor pulled out citing concerns. I was furious but focused. "We'll prove them wrong," I told Bridget, my voice firm. We doubled down, releasing a new episode featuring a local musician whose story went viral, pushing City Voices to 50,000 downloads. Stanley called to confirm his support, unfazed by the gossip. "I trust your work," he said. That kept me going. Aunt Lillian sent a text. "Don't let the noise stop you." Her words echoed Colin's encouragement, grounding me when doubt crept in. Still, Marina's rumors hurt. A local media outlet ran a piece questioning my ethics, and I felt the weight of every word. I'd wake up checking my phone, bracing for new attacks. Bridget suggested we hit back with a smear campaign, but I refused. "We're better than that," I said. Instead, I invited a reporter to the studio, showing her our process: raw, honest, no shortcuts. The resulting article praised our authenticity, but the damage lingered. Some listeners unsubscribed and a speaking gig fell through. I didn't reach out to my family. Dad and June hadn't contacted me since the party, and Mom's silence spoke louder than words. I heard through a friend that Reed Hotels was struggling. June's new location was bleeding money. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I felt free. Their world wasn't mine anymore. I leaned on Colin and Bridget, my chosen family, and kept building. SoundWave Studio was my answer to every jab, every doubt. Marina's rumors didn't stop me, but they lit a fire under me. SoundWave Studio was my proof I could stand on my own, no Reed name required. With Bridget Cole by my side, my first employee and a 25-year-old editing genius, we turned our small Philly office into a hub of creativity. City Voices was hitting new highs with 75,000 downloads and a loyal listener base. We hired 2 more editors, cramped but buzzing with energy, and landed a deal with a local theater group for a narrative series. Every contract, every episode felt like a middle finger to the doubts Dad and June had thrown at me. Bridget was relentless. She'd stay late tweaking audio, her headphones on, coffee cups piling up. "We're building an empire," she'd say, half joking, her eyes bright with focus. Colin pitched in 2 filming promo clips for our social media, his camera catching the raw passion of our work. Aunt Lillian dropped by with homemade cookies, her voice warm. "You're doing what I always dreamed of," she said, her smile a quiet anchor. Their support kept me grounded, especially when the internet turned ugly again. Marina Choi wasn't done. Her rival studio, now losing ground to ours, launched a new wave of attacks. A podcasting forum post, thinly veiled, called "My Work Overhyped Fluff" and hinted I'd bribed clients for deals. Another anonymous tweet claimed I'd copied Marina's format. The accusations were baseless, but they spread fast. A potential sponsor emailed, hesitating, citing industry chatter. I felt my stomach twist, the old sting of being called a fraud creeping back. Bridget caught me staring at my screen, jaw tight. "Screw her," she said, slamming her laptop shut. "Let's drop a killer episode and shut them up." We did just that. Our next City Voices episode, a deep dive into a Philly chef's comeback story, hit 100,000 downloads in a week. Listeners flooded our inbox with praise, and a local radio station invited me for an interview. Stanley Huang, our tech CEO client, sent a note. "Your latest episode's a home run. Ignore the noise." His confidence bolstered mine, but Marina's tactics were relentless. A blogger, likely tipped off by her team, questioned my credentials, digging up my lack of a business degree. "Not a real producer," the headline read. I wanted to scream, but I channeled it into work instead. I called a team meeting. Bridget and the new editors gathered in our tiny office, the hum of mics in the background. "We don't play dirty," I said, my voice steady. "We win by being better." We brainstormed a new series, Philly Rising, showcasing entrepreneurs like me, underdogs fighting for their dreams. The first episode, featuring a street artist, gained traction, fast trending on local social media. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Marina could throw shade, but SoundWave Studio was carving its own space. Still, the pressure wore on me. Late nights, I'd scroll through comments, wincing at the hate. Colin would pull me away, his hand on mine. "You're bigger than this," he'd say, his voice calm but firm. Aunt Lillian mailed me a sketch she'd drawn, a woman breaking free from chains. "That's you," her note read. Their belief kept me from cracking, but Marina's shadow loomed. A major podcast festival invited us to speak, but the organizer mentioned concerns about my reputation, clearly Marina's doing. We got the slot, but it felt like a fight for every inch. My family stayed distant. I heard Reed Hotels was faltering. June's expansion was a mess, bleeding cash. Mom sent a text, vague and cautious. "Hope you're okay." I didn't reply. Dad and June hadn't reached out, and I wasn't chasing them. With every hurdle cleared, I found my stride. A year after walking out of Reed Hotel's anniversary party, I stood on a stage in Philadelphia, clutching the Content Creator of the Year award from the National Podcast Association. The spotlight burned, but the weight of the trophy felt like a shield. City Voices had exploded to 200,000 downloads, and SoundWave Studio was now a name in the industry. Bridget, standing backstage, flashed a grin, her pride louder than the applause. Colin squeezed my hand before I stepped up, whispering, "You earned this." I scanned the crowd, half expecting to see Dad or June, but they weren't there. That absence stung less than I thought it would. My acceptance speech was short. "This is for anyone who's been told their dreams don't matter," I said, my voice steady. "Keep going." The crowd roared, and for the first time I felt untouchable. Backstage, Stanley Huang shook my hand, his smile wide. "You're the real deal," he said, his company's series now a hit. Bridget and our team celebrated late into the night, the studio's tiny office packed with laughter and music. Aunt Lillian sent a painting, a vibrant cityscape with my silhouette at the center. "My hero," her note read. That meant more than any award. Meanwhile, Reed Hotels was crumbling. A business journal ran a feature on their decline, pinning it on June's mismanagement. Her new location, hyped as a game changer, was a money pit, empty rooms, bad reviews, staff quitting. Investors pulled out, and Walter's name, once gold in Philly's business circles, was now a cautionary tale. A contact in the industry told me Dad had lost a major partnership after a public spat with a client. June's arrogance, once her strength, was now her downfall. I didn't gloat, but I felt a quiet justice. Their empire was fading while mine was rising. Mom reached out after the award, her email tentative. "I'm proud of you," she wrote, suggesting coffee. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over reply. Part of me wanted to meet to hear her out, but the years of silence, of her standing by while Dad and June tore me down, held me back. I typed a polite response. "Thanks, but I'm okay." Dad sent a letter, formal and stiff, hinting at reconciliation, offering a place at Reed Hotels. I read it once, then tossed it. June didn't bother contacting me, and I didn't expect her to. Their world no longer had a hold on me. Marina Choi's rumors had faded. After our Philly Rising series went viral, her attacks lost traction. A podcasting conference snubbed her panel, citing lack of originality, while SoundWave Studio landed a keynote slot. I didn't confront her, she wasn't worth my time. My work spoke louder than her lies. Bridget kept tabs, noting Marina's studio was struggling to keep clients. "Karma's real," she said, smirking over her laptop. I just nodded, focused on our next project, a series on Philly's unsung heroes. Standing on that stage, award in hand, I realized something: freedom wasn't just leaving Reed Hotels behind. It was choosing myself every day. The pressure to conform to carry their legacy had nearly broken me, but I'd fought through Dad's ultimatums, June's sneers, Marina's smears. I built SoundWave Studio from nothing with Colin's quiet strength, Bridget's fierce loyalty, and Aunt Lillian's unwavering belief. They were my family now, not the Reeds. The lesson wasn't lost on me. Independence isn't just walking away. It's standing tall when everyone expects you to fall. Confidence isn't loud. It's the quiet certainty that you're enough. I looked out at Philly's skyline from my studio window, the city alive with stories waiting to be told. I was ready to tell them on my terms. Winning the award was a milestone, but my real joy came from giving back. Months after the ceremony, I poured my energy into organizing SoundWave Studio's first charity event, a fundraiser for arts education in Philadelphia's underserved schools. The venue, a community center in North Philly, buzzed with energy. Local musicians performed, kids displayed their paintings, and volunteers handed out flyers. We raised enough to fund art classes for a year, and seeing those kids' faces lit up something deep inside me. Bridget's sleeves rolled up, ran the audio booth, her grin infectious. "This is what it's all about," she said, adjusting a mic for a young poet. Colin was there too, filming the event, his camera capturing every smile. We'd moved in together, our small apartment, a cozy haven filled with his sketches and my podcast gear. Life with him felt like home, steady, warm, real. The event wasn't just about the kids. It was my way of proving what mattered. SoundWave Studio wasn't just a business, it was a platform for stories that deserved to be heard. Stanley Huang sponsored part of the event, his team setting up a tech booth for kids to try podcasting. "You're changing lives," he told me, his voice earnest. Aunt Lillian attended, her eyes bright as she handed out art supplies. "You've built something bigger than yourself," she said, hugging me tightly. Her words sank in a reminder of why I kept going. The crowd, nearly 300 strong, clapped as I spoke about the power of art to transform. For once, I wasn't fighting to prove myself, I was lifting others up. Marina Choi's shadow finally faded. A tech journalist uncovered her role in the smear campaign against me, tracing anonymous posts back to her studio's IP address. The podcasting community turned on her, her clients dropped contracts, and a major festival banned her for ethics violations. Her studio's social media went quiet, her reputation in tatters. Bridget showed me the article, her voice gleeful. "She's done," she said, high-fiving me. I didn't celebrate, though. Marina's fall wasn't my victory. My work was. SoundWave Studio's latest series, Voices of Tomorrow, featuring young artists, was climbing charts with 300,000 downloads. That was my answer to her lies. My family stayed distant. I heard Reed Hotels was on the verge of bankruptcy, June's mismanagement driving away what was left of their loyal clients. Dad's name no longer carried weight in Philly's business world. Mom sent another email asking to meet, but I let it sit unanswered. Their world, built on control not connection, had nothing for me. I didn't need their approval anymore. Colin and I would spend evenings planning our next adventure, maybe a trip to record stories abroad. Bridget and the team were already pitching new series, our office now, a bigger space with sunlight streaming in. Aunt Lillian's paintings decorated the walls, each one a reminder of her belief in me. Looking back, I saw the truth, living authentically. Not chasing someone else's expectations was my freedom. Dad wanted me to fit his mold. June wanted me to fail. Marina wanted me erased. But I chose my own path, telling stories, building community, giving back. That choice brought me a happiness I never found in their world. The fundraiser's success wasn't just about the money raised, it was about the lives touched, the voices amplified. I learned that true fulfillment comes from contributing to something bigger, from staying true to who you are. Standing in that community center, watching kids laugh and create, I knew I'd found my purpose. Colin's hand in mine, Bridget's laughter in the background, the hum of a city full of stories. This was my life, and it was enough.